Life is an odyssey of the soul through the labyrinth of being. Friedrich Nietzsche. The mystery of being is the deepest and most inescapable question we face. Our philosophical journey to self-knowledge is not mere intellectual curiosity, but the very essence of our existence. Plato glimpsed the truth beyond the shadows of the cave. Buddha revealed the illusion of the ego. Jung delved into the depths of the collective unconscious. All pointed to a transcendent reality that permeates our everyday experience. The human being is an enigma to himself. We live divided between the mundane and the sublime, trapped in transitory identities while yearning for the eternal. Why does this duality define us? Where does this incessant drive to seek meaning come from? The answer lies not in dogma or closed systems, but in the relentless investigation of our own nature. The path to self-knowledge is arduous, requiring us to confront our shadows and illusions. How many are willing to undertake this inner journey? This journey, far from being a philosophical abstraction, manifests itself in every moment of our lives. Notice how, over the course of a single day, we oscillate between different states of consciousness. There are moments of crystal clarity, when we feel connected to something greater, and others of confusion and alienation, when we lose touch with our center. Consider waking up in the morning. In that brief instant between sleep and full wakefulness, we experience a glimpse of our essential nature before everyday concerns and identities resettle. It is a fleeting moment of pure awareness, free from ego constructs. Many mystics and philosophers, from different traditions, have pointed to the importance of this liminal state. The Roman philosopher Seneca wrote, "Every day is a life in miniature." This perspective invites us to see each daily journey as a metaphor for our larger existential journey. Physical awakening mirrors spiritual awakening. Our everyday struggles and achievements reflect our greater search for meaning and transcendence. As the day progresses, we are drawn into the whirlwind of our responsibilities and social roles. Here we find fertile ground for what psychologist Carl Jung called the persona, the mask we wear to adapt to social expectations. This persona, while necessary for social navigation, often distances us from our authentic selves. Jung warned, "A persona is that which one is not, but which both he and others think he is." How often do we find ourselves acting in ways that are incongruent with our deepest values, just to please or conform? This internal conflict between authenticity and social acceptance is a constant source of existential tension. Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard delved into this question in his exploration of existential angst. For him, anguish arises precisely from this confrontation between our infinite possibilities and the limitations imposed by social reality. He wrote, "Anguish is the vertigo of freedom." This vertigo manifests itself at crucial decision moments in our lives, faced with a professional crossroads. For example, we feel the weight of our freedom. Each choice implies the renunciation of countless other possibilities. It is at this moment that many experience what Sartre called existential nausea, the acute awareness of the contingency of our existence. However, it is precisely in these moments of crisis that we have the opportunity for a quantum leap in our consciousness. Psychologist Abraham Maslow called these moments peak experiences, instants of transcendent clarity that can reorient our entire existence. But how can we cultivate this expanded awareness amid the demands of everyday life? Here, contemplative traditions offer precious tools. Meditation, for example, is not just a relaxation exercise, but a rigorous practice of self-observation. When we sit quietly, observing the flow of our thoughts and emotions without judgment, we begin to realize the transient nature of our mental experiences. Gradually, a witnessing consciousness emerges, capable of observing the drama of our lives with equanimity. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a simple but profound practice, mindfulness of breathing. By anchoring our awareness in the natural rhythm of breathing, we create a point of stability amidst the chaos of our minds. He says, breathing is a miracle that allows us to touch life in the present moment. This practice can be integrated into all aspects of our daily lives. When washing dishes, for example, we can bring all of our attention to the feel of the water on our hands, the scent of the soap, the shine of the clean dishes. We thus transform a mundane task into an act of meditation, an exercise in presence. German philosopher Martin Heidegger spoke about the concept of Dasein, being there, authentic presence in the world. For Heidegger, most of us live in a state of inauthenticity, absorbed in everyday concerns and forgetful of our deepest nature. The practice of mindfulness is a path to regaining this lost authenticity. As we cultivate this presence, we begin to notice the subconscious patterns that govern our lives. We observe how we automatically react to certain situations, repeating behaviors learned in childhood or inherited from our culture. This self-observation is the first step towards liberation from these conditionings. Psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud compared this process of self-discovery to an archaeological dig. Layer by layer, we unearth the deep structures of our psyche. However, unlike Freud, who focused mainly on traumas and complexes, Jung also emphasized the positive potential of the unconscious. For Jung, the unconscious is not just a repository of repressed material, but a source of wisdom and creativity. He introduced the concept of individuation, the process by which we integrate the diverse aspects of our psyche, including the shadow, our denied or repressed aspects, and the archetypes, universal patterns of human experience. This integration process is neither linear nor easy. It often involves periods of crisis and disorientation. Mythologist Joseph Campbell described this process as the hero's journey, a universal narrative of transformation that we find in myths and fairy tales from all cultures. Campbell identified common stages in this journey: the call to adventure, the encounter with mentors and allies, the descent into the underworld, confrontation with the shadow, the ultimate ordeal, and the return with the elixir of wisdom. This archetypal pattern can be seen not only in grand epic narratives, but also in our own lives. Consider, for example, the experience of someone going through a midlife crisis. The call to adventure may come in the form of growing dissatisfaction with current life. The mentor could be a therapist or an inspirational book. The descent into the underworld may involve confronting repressed fears or unfulfilled desires, The supreme ordeal may be the decision to make a radical life change, and the return is the integration of this new wisdom into everyday life. This transformation process is not just individual, but has collective implications. Physicist and philosopher David Bohm proposed the idea of an implicit order underlying apparent reality. According to Bohm, our individual consciousnesses are like eddies in a river, seemingly separate, but fundamentally interconnected. This view resonates with ancient spiritual traditions, such as the Hindu concept of Atman, the individual being, and Brahman, the ultimate reality. The realization of the fundamental unity of all existence has profound ethical implications. How can we treat each other as separate when, on a deeper level, we are one? The African philosopher Ubuntu captures this idea in the phrase, "I am because we are." This perspective invites us to see our individual journey of self-knowledge as part of a collective evolution of human consciousness. However, this vision of unity does not deny the uniqueness of each individual. Existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre emphasized the responsibility inherent in our freedom. According to him, we are condemned to be free, forced to make choices that define who we are, without being able to appeal to external authorities or excuses. This freedom can be frightening, but it is also the source of our dignity and creative potential. Humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers argued that each individual has an actualizing tendency, an innate drive toward growth and self-actualization. Our task is to create the conditions for this potential to flourish. A powerful practice to facilitate this process is reflective journaling. At the end of each day, take time to reflect on your experiences. What moments brought a sense of alignment and purpose? What situations triggered automatic reactions that you would like to change? What insights emerged? This exercise in self-reflection is not just a passive recording of events, but an active dialogue with the self. The act of writing externalizes our thoughts and emotions, allowing us to observe them more objectively. Often, solutions to seemingly insoluble dilemmas emerge spontaneously in this process. Another transformative practice is what psychologist Roberto Assagioli called disidentification. This exercise involves recognizing that we are not our thoughts, emotions, or social roles, but the consciousness that observes them. Assagioli suggested the following statement: "I have a body, but I am not my body. I have emotions, but I am not my emotions. I have thoughts, but I am not my thoughts. I am the one who is conscious of all this." This practice helps us cultivate what Buddhists call non-attachment, the ability to fully experience our experiences without completely identifying with them. This creates a space of inner freedom, allowing for more conscious responses to life situations. The Greek philosopher Epictetus said, "It is not the things themselves that trouble us, but our opinions about those things." By practicing disidentification, we begin to notice how our interpretations and judgments shape our experience of reality. This gives us the power to choose more constructive and liberating perspectives. However, it is important not to confuse this practice with a denial or suppression of our emotional experiences. The goal is not to become cold or detached, but to develop a wiser, more compassionate relationship with all facets of our experience. Psychologist and mystic Ram Dass talked about being the space for everything. This means cultivating a consciousness broad enough to embrace the full range of human experiences, joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, success and failure, without losing our center. This ability to be present with all of our experiences without fully identifying with them is the essence of what many spiritual traditions call enlightenment or awakening. It is not an end state to be achieved, but a way of being in the world moment to moment. Zen Buddhism captures this idea in the concept of beginner's mind. Zen master Shunryu Suzuki wrote, "In the beginner's mind there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, few." This attitude of openness and curiosity allows us to see the world with fresh eyes, free from the filters of our expectations and prejudices. Imagine approaching every situation in your life, from routine tasks to big challenges, with this beginner's mind. How would this change your experience? How would it affect your relationships, your work, your relationship with yourself? American philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson captured the essence of this approach in his essay, Confidence in Oneself. He wrote, "What is behind us and what is in front of us are small things compared to what is within us. This trust in our inner wisdom is the key to navigating the labyrinth of being." However, this journey of self-discovery is not a solitary path. Paradoxically, it is through our relationships that we often discover deeper aspects of ourselves. Philosopher Martin Buber spoke about the importance of the I-thou encounter, a type of relationship in which we see and honor the otherness of the other, in contrast to I-it relationships, where we treat others as objects or means to an end. These authentic encounters challenge us to expand our consciousness beyond the limits of our individual ego. When we truly listen to someone, when we allow ourselves to be touched by their unique experience, our own sense of self expands. We discover that we are capable of empathy and compassion beyond what we imagined. Psychologist Carl Rogers, in his work on therapeutic relationships, identified 3 essential qualities for these transformative encounters: empathy, unconditional acceptance, and congruence, authenticity. These qualities are not only relevant in therapeutic contexts, but in all of our relationships. Imagine cultivating these qualities in your daily interactions. What would it be like to truly listen to your partner, your child, your coworker, without judgment and with genuine curiosity? What would it be like to express yourself with total authenticity, without fear of rejection? This way of being in relationship not only enriches our connections with others, but also deepens our connection with ourselves. By practicing unconditional acceptance of others, we learn to more fully accept all aspects of ourselves. The humanistic psychologist Abraham Maslow, in his studies of self-actualized people, observed that they had an extraordinary ability to appreciate the simple, ordinary aspects of life. He called these peak experiences, moments of ecstasy and wonder that can occur in seemingly mundane situations. These experiences are not reserved for saints or sages. They are available to all of us, if we learn to pay attention. The poet William Blake captured this idea in his verse, "To see a world in a grain of sand, and a sky in a wildflower, to hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour." Cultivating this capacity for wonder is a powerful practice. Try, for one day, approaching each experience as if it were the first time. Notice the texture of your food, the feel of the wind on your skin, the nuances of color in a flower. Listen to the people in your life as if you've never heard them before. This mindfulness practice not only enriches our immediate experience, but also connects us to the vastness of the universe. Astronomer Carl Sagan expressed this perspective eloquently. We are the cosmos's way of knowing itself. Our search for self-knowledge is, in this sense, part of the evolution of cosmic consciousness. However, this expansion of consciousness is not always a smooth process. It often involves periods of crisis and disorientation. Psychiatrist Stanislav Grof, in his work with altered states of consciousness, observed that many psychological crises are actually spiritual emergencies, opportunities for growth and profound transformation. Grof argues that our modern Western culture lacks an adequate context to understand and support these transformative experiences. In traditional societies, rites of passage and shamanic practices provided a container for these inner journeys. In our society, we often label them as mental illnesses and try to suppress them with medication. A more holistic approach would recognize the transformative potential of these crises. This does not mean romanticizing psychological suffering, but rather providing the support and resources needed to navigate these challenging times with wisdom and compassion. Transpersonal psychologist Ken Wilber proposes a developmental model that integrates insights from Eastern and Western spiritual traditions with modern psychology. He argues that psychological and spiritual growth occurs in stages, each transcending and including the previous one. In this model, our journey of self-knowledge is not linear, but an upward spiral. We revisit themes and challenges at increasingly deeper levels of understanding and integration. Each turn of the spiral offers us a broader perspective and a greater ability to embrace the complexity of the human experience. A powerful practice to facilitate this process of expanding consciousness is what philosopher Pierre Hadot called spiritual exercises. These are not necessarily religious practices, but rather methods of transforming the self and our relationship with the world. One example is the Stoic practice of amor fati, love of destiny. This involves fully accepting everything that happens in our lives, not with passive resignation, but with an active embrace. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche expressed this as the ability to say yes to life in all its aspects, including the painful and challenging ones. Imagine approaching every situation in your life, from minor annoyances to major tragedies, with this attitude of radical acceptance. How would this change your experience? How would you transform your relationship with suffering? Another powerful exercise is the contemplation of death. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the importance of remembering our mortality as a means of living more fully. Philosopher Martin Heidegger spoke about being toward death as an authentic form of existence. Try, for a moment, to imagine that this is the last day of your life. How would you live it? What priorities would emerge? What concerns would lose importance? This practice is not intended to induce anxiety, but rather clarity and appreciation for the preciousness of each moment. Existential psychologist Irvin Yalom argues that confronting our finitude can be a catalyst for a more authentic and meaningful life. He writes, "Although the physical consciousness of death destroys us, the idea of death saves us." This perspective invites us to live each day with intentionality and presence. The Roman philosopher Marcus Aurelius advised, "My perfect every act of your life as if it were your last." This attitude transforms even the most mundane tasks into opportunities for full expression of our being. As we deepen our journey of self-discovery, we begin to realize that the Oneself we are seeking is not a fixed entity, but a constantly evolving process. The Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna spoke of the emptiness of all phenomena, not in the sense of nihilistic emptiness, but of radical interdependence. This vision frees us from the need to define or fix our identity. We are, at every moment, a unique confluence of countless influences: biological, cultural, psychological, spiritual. Our task is not to discover a hidden, true self, but to continually create ourselves through our choices and actions. The existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre captured this idea in his famous phrase, "Existence precedes essence." We are not born with a predetermined nature. We create who we are through our actions and decisions. This freedom is both a burden and a gift. We are the authors of our own lives. However, this freedom does not exist in a vacuum. We are always beings in relation, influenced, and influencing the world around us. Feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir emphasized the importance of recognizing our interdependence and the ethical responsibilities this entails. From this perspective, self-knowledge is not an end in itself, but a means of becoming more effective in our interaction with the world. The more we understand our motivations, patterns, and potentials, the more capable we become of making conscious choices and contributing positively to the world. Humanistic psychologist Abraham Maslow, in his later writings, spoke of self-transcendence as the pinnacle of human development. This involves moving beyond individual self-fulfillment to a sense of connection and service to something greater than ourselves. This view resonates with ancient spiritual traditions. The Buddhist concept of a bodhisattva, a being who delays his own liberation to help all sentient beings, captures this idea of universal compassion. In Christianity, we find a similar ideal in the concept of agape, unconditional, self-sacrificial love. How can we incorporate this ideal into our everyday lives? We don't need to be saints or martyrs. Small acts of kindness, conscious ethical choices, cultivating empathy in our relationships. These are all ways to transcend the limited ego and connect with a greater reality. Psychologist Erik Erikson, in his lifespan model of development, identified generativity as a crucial task of midlife. This involves contributing to the well-being of future generations, whether through parenting, mentoring, creative work, or community involvement. This perspective invites us to see our lives not just in terms of personal fulfillment, but as part of a larger story. What legacy do we want to leave? How do our actions today shape the world we leave for future generations? Environmentalist Joanna Macy talks about the need to develop a deep time consciousness, the ability to see ourselves as part of a lineage that extends into the distant past and far future. This perspective can inform our daily choices, from our consumption to our civic engagement. As we expand our consciousness to encompass these broader dimensions of time and connection, our sense of self expands correspondingly. We begin to identify not just with our individual ego, but with the web of life as a whole. Deep ecologist Arne Naess called this the ecological self, a sense of self that includes not just our individual personality, but the entire ecosystem of which we are a part. In this view, caring for the planet is not an external duty, but a natural expression of enlightened self-interest. This expansion of identity does not need to stop at the planetary level. Astronomer Carl Sagan invited us to consider our position in the cosmos. Contemplation of the cosmos excites us, humbles us, exalts us, promotes us, and in one way or another, profoundly transforms us. Seeing ourselves as part of this vast, evolving universe can be a profoundly transformative experience. Our everyday concerns are put into perspective, and at the same time, each moment of our existence takes on cosmic meaning. However, this expansive view does not take us away from our immediate experience. On the contrary, it invites us to a deeper appreciation of life in all its manifestations. The poet Walt Whitman captured this sensitivity in his verse, "I believe a blade of grass is no less than the journey of the stars." Thus, our journey of self-discovery takes us, paradoxically, beyond the limited self with which we began. We discover that we are, simultaneously, infinitely small and immensely vast. We are individual waves and the entire ocean. The Christian mystic Meister Eckhart expressed this paradoxical realization. The eye with which I see God is the same eye with which God sees me. In this view, our quest for self-knowledge is ultimately the universe knowing itself through us. This realization is not the end of the journey, but a new beginning. With this expanded understanding, we return to our everyday lives with a new perspective. Every interaction, every choice, every moment becomes an opportunity to manifest this wisdom. Philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin talked about evolution heading towards an omega point of increasing complexity and consciousness. In this view, our individual journey of self-knowledge is part of a greater cosmic evolution. As we navigate the maze of being, let us remember that we are not alone. Every human being is on their own journey of self-discovery. By recognizing this, we can cultivate compassion for ourselves and others, knowing that we are all doing the best we can with the level of consciousness we have at the moment. The Sufi mystic Rumi reminds us, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in one drop." May we live our lives with the depth and vastness that this understanding implies. May your journey through the labyrinth of being be rich in discoveries, challenges, and moments of grace. Always remember, the mystery you seek is the seeker himself. The journey and the destination are one. End.